Hello, my name is Seth Porter. I am the Assistant Director of Digital Teaching, Learning, and Scholarship at Princeton University Library. I oversee education technology as well as digital scholarship within the library. Specifically today, we're talking about combat and extended reality experience and other applications. Basically, this is a case study on one specific, very interesting case study that we had to implement extended reality, specifically VR, virtual reality, within the curriculum at Princeton University and try to diffuse this into other applications as well and co-curricular and curricular applications. And so this is a really interesting project I partnered with and with a few folks across campus. And so I'm excited to share this with the greater world. And so the plan for today, we're going to be talking about that one very interesting case, extended reality at Princeton University. I'm going to give an overview of what we're doing, how we're doing it, and a few validated cases, how we've used it at the library and how we've partnered with other interesting stakeholders across campus. Then we're going to get on to the good stuff. And so this is what we call the experience of war. And I had it, what I thought was clever, probably not that clever, but war, yeah, what is it good for? And this was where we partnered with a class in the Woodrow Wilson School, formerly Woodrow Wilson School, now the School of Public and International Affairs, on implementation of warfare and military intervention to try to show students who are, quite frankly, going to be policymakers and leaders at the national and international level on what it was actually like. And I'll talk a little bit about the lessons learned. And so we have a lot of different extended reality applications at Princeton. There's multiple stakeholders across the campus, but in the library, we're one of the leaders at Princeton University. So we have multiple VR services. One is course integrated programming, which I think is the most important part. And the biggest case today we're going to be talking about is that. We do curricular support and design of VR learning experience. We have a VR studio for free play and exploration of virtual worlds. We have VR designated workspace for the PC-based Oculus Rift S for free play and programming. We have hands-on workshops to learn about VR technology and how they can be applied within a classroom, but also just for users and students who would like to play with technology. We have a VR exhibition, and we also have VR headsets available for borrowing. And so one thing we're working on now is content creation and curation around 360-degree content in special collections. And so this is going to be a really interesting project where we're able to democratize and show some of the greatest collections in the world to the greater world, make it much more immersive. And so to touch on a few validated cases, I'm going to talk about what we've done at the engineering library. And so basically this is an exhibition for CEE 463. This is an activity, a virtual reality exhibition is available, and this is a social and multi-dimensional exploration of structures taught by Maria Garlock and Branko Glisic, taught in 2016. The focus of the 2016 course was creativity in the Cuban thin shell structure. And so basically, the students were able to travel there, and they made a lot of 360 content, and now to relive that, as well as to introduce it to students who didn't make the trip, you're able to go to the structures explored during the class visit. So this helps with information retention and recall, and also helping students who weren't able to make it to this specific course, this specific class, be able to experience a little bit more deeply than just going through photos, what they would experience elsewhere. So I think the virtual experience illustrates the multi-dimensional exploration of structures that are visited, which assists in embedding the experience and assists in memory recall. Another validated case that we partnered with the American Higher Education Working Group. And so we embedded virtual reality programming into the curriculum through a drop-in workshop or mandatory homework assignment. And so basically for this, we had multiple different institutions. We had the students explore these. So this was everything from community colleges to public regionals to public high research institutions. And this was really interesting because the vast majority of the students in this working group are interested in kind of alt academy or alt tenure track jobs. And they wanted to see what is higher education like, what are colleges like outside of the Ivy League, because most of these students went to small private liberal arts institutions and Ivy League institutions. So we're able to give them a more immersive experience on what higher education is at the macro level in America. And so this is one of the students exploring it, a very interesting project. And of course we were using the Oculus, and the way he's acting there, I imagine he might have hacked it and played a video game, but as long as he's exploring the technology, it's something we support. Excuse me. Next, another student, he looks like they might be looking around a little bit more at American higher education solutions. But if he's playing a game as well, well, you know, that's fun too. And so war, yeah, what is it good for? This is one of the most interesting cases that we did last year. And unfortunately, based on COVID-19, we weren't able to recreate this year, but we're talking about, I'm working with a faculty member, Rick Barton, to do it in the future. So just as, you know, kind of a quick focus on what we wanted to do was, these students who, you know, at the Public International Affairs program, a lot of these students end up becoming policy actors. We wanted to make sure they understood the ramifications of military intervention. And so it's more than just reading a static learning object, watching video. We wanted them to feel it. We wanted them to have that emotive cognition and to really remember it. So we wanted them to be able to have the true experience, this immersive experience. And this was the focus and the goal, working with Rick Barton, who's a former ambassador, to implement this in the undergraduate curriculum. And so the course is Improving Interventions, and that basically the instructor, the assistant instructor, and the PUL technologist, we embedded virtual reality program into the curriculum through an immersive experience of 360 video illustrating the Battle of Fallujah. It's just kind of as how we did this was we had the instructor required students to use the Oculus Quest and immersive extended reality content to discover the reality of military intervention. After that, there was a certain case, that was the case study, and we had prompts to discuss it. So the instructor had the class discuss their reactions and feelings to seeing the devastation and change. And this was a very intimate experience, and the dialogue was richer than I'd ever heard based on a short, brief video. And, you know, just in general, I don't think this is a panacea or it's going to change everything about higher education curriculum. I think that's a mistake when folks do think that, but I think it is, it's another tool in your toolbox that you can use quite effectively and efficiently. And so just kind of the context and benefits, just to give you a little more overview. Basically, in fall 2009, PUL, with Professor Rick Barton, a lecturer in Public and International Affairs and co-director of the University Scholars and Nation Services Initiative, we utilized this equipment in the junior task force, Improving Interventions, to help the students gain a better understanding of military intervention and the impact of warfare. So using the Oculus Quest headsets, undergraduate students interacted with an in-depth 360-degree documentary about the fight for Fallujah. Barton then facilitated a discussion about how it felt to be in battle. A few things that really stood out was the students expressed they had experienced a more realistic sense of life in a war zone and felt better equipped to make more informed policy decisions. When asked about how VR enhances the classroom experience, Barton said, the course requires students to improve their local knowledge, and since there is no field work, the VR creates a sense of immediacy that we all value. A central part of learning is building this personal sense of space and place, and VR provides this in a realistic way, which was very interesting. And so just a couple quotes from the students. Actually, let's go back. I'm going to show you a very brief video. Please be patient while this loads on what the students saw. Of course, this was not, you're not going to be in 360 right now, but I just want to be able to recreate a little bit about what the students saw in 2D. So I'm going to stop talking. We'll just watch this for a minute or two. As you can see, it's a very realistic experience, and I don't want to show you the whole thing because it's not as engaging when you're not watching it with the Oculus Quest on, but I encourage everyone after this to take a minute, put on their VR headset, whether that's a phone HMD or an Oculus Quest or something similar. Please navigate to this, the Fight for Fallujah 360 VR video by the New York Times, and watch this so you have a better understanding what the students were going through. And so we had a few interesting quotes after the fact to discuss this immersive experience. So some of the students mentioned the small size of the enemy combatant jail cells made me realize the reality of the situation. Another, I felt like I was dodging bullets. another, the amount of rubble really showed the impact of interventions. And one thing I thought was really interesting about this, and I want to just, touch on that very briefly, was when you were watching it, when I was watching these students react, they were moving, they were dodging, it really sensed like they were there. Of course they weren't there, and we can't have field work in that environment. But if we can try to recreate the immediacy and how scary it is, maybe the students have a better understanding of the impact of the intervention. So for example, many of the students mentioned they would hear bullets, which were, this wasn't a film, this was a documentary. And then they would see students playing in the rubble, and just so the impact on war outside of just the enemy combatants, but also what it was like for people who are just living there, trying to live their life. And I feel like that is highly valuable for them to have that perspective. So a few things to touch upon before we wrap up today. A few successes. I think the diffusion of VR pedagogical interventions into the curriculum is a success in itself. Even if this case study hadn't been as interesting and fun and impactful as it was, I think just having folks dive into this, having the faculty, having their assistants, as well as the students have a better understanding of what this type of extended reality can do, as well as how it can have that impact on embodied cognition, is highly valuable. And so second, that kind of compounds into the fact it's about embodied cognition. It's about memorizing it, experiencing it, not just memorizing a text, but memorizing that experience so you can recall it and feel. And this always improves memory when you actually can see it, when you can memorize it, when you can feel it, instead of just a static learning object. And so the students, we didn't do any formal assessment to actually test this, but based on the informal, of course, assessment, it was highly valuable. Second, it was fun. Anytime you can make learning fun, I think you should do it. The students had fun. We had a great discussion and dialogue. It was outside of their normal curricular and pedagogical experiences, and they discussed how much they enjoyed this. And so fourth, the student experience with the technology. A few of the students were familiar with it, but a lot weren't. And of course, I think VR and extended reality has a long ways to go, but I think it has a bright, bright future. And so I think to get there, we need smart students to be able to use it, want to use it, and even start programming. And so I felt like that was just introducing the students to this technology, and based on the feedback, this was a success. So it wasn't all easy, and it wasn't all a success. There were a few bottlenecks. So number one, applicable content. I think anybody who works in extended reality and virtual reality in higher education, a lot of the content outside of cultural heritage, Google Arts and Culture, et cetera, is very hard to access, one, hard to find, two, and three, a lot of it is not applicable. And so I think in the future, hopefully there's more applicable content. Next is the synchronization of experience. So it was very difficult to match up everybody across the board, so we synced at the same time. So basically it was a lot of prep work. So to do this successfully, I had every one of these students prep beforehand. They knew they had the app downloaded, and this took a lot of work in itself to get everything processed and ready to go and uploaded. We then had the Oculus Quest set up, and I turned down all the volume, and I said, 1, 2, 3, go. And right when they hit play, I turned the volume on the surround sound within the eClassroom, the digital learning lab. And so at that point, the video was synced with the video is synced with the audio. And so instead of everybody being 1 second behind and having 15 different audios going, we were able to sync it, but it was a lot of work. And so we streamed this documentary synchronously on the projector with the sound on. And so this was challenging, but we were able to nail it, but it took a lot of work. And so that kind of compounds into the last step. It was timely, and it had the timely logistical setup. I had to have a detailed list built up, a quick website made up so the students were all on the same page, had the app downloaded, a lot of conversations with the faculty. And so in the future, I think it'd be easier because the faculty members have better experience with this now. But again, as you're embedding this across the curriculum, I think you'll run into a lot of that. So you need to make sure you have the staffing with technologists who work with that, as well as the patients, and just clear instructional design and things A through Z set up. And so I do want to end this. I think whenever possible, especially in today's world when we are on Zoom call after Zoom call, meeting after meeting. It's important to be as efficient and effective and as short as possible. And so I do want to end this probably a few minutes shorter than a lot of the ones you're seeing. But before we wrap this up, I want to thank everybody for their time, for taking the time. If anyone needs to get a hold of me, please, this is my contact information. I care deeply about extended reality. I think there's a lot of applications. It's been a frustrating fall, I think, for the application of virtual reality as well as extended reality, based on the fact that it's almost impossible to keep these things clean. And so, we're hoping to really launch this when we can again and keep innovating, keep diffusing this through the curriculum at Princeton University. If everybody heard my dog in the background, I apologize. It's the time of day where people are walking by, and so he's apparently guarding my house. Again, I want to thank you for your time, and I hope everyone enjoys EDUCAUSE.